Greetings, welcome to Jefficho Films. This 1999 British historical action comedy is set in London in 1948, and it's about highway robberies. So, let's get to Plunkett and Macleane.
Look, I'm not altogether sure what you're suggesting, but you see, I'm a gentleman. And, well, no offense intended, but would you mind awfully fucking off?
The movie starts out with Captain James Macleane, who's being sent to the Knightsbridge jail till he's sober, and then a carriage crashes into his cell, and two highwaymen rob it. And then soldiers start showing up, and Rob gets shot, who's Will Plunkett's friend, and he has to leave him behind. And the soldiers try to get information out of him. One of them even sticks his finger in his eye. James stays hidden until the soldiers leave, and then he goes to a rainy graveyard the next day because he overheard Rob tell Will that he swallowed a jewel and he's gonna go dig it up. But Will shows up and forces him to dig it up and cut it into his buddy and get the jewel. But then soldiers show up and they get arrested. They get to their cells and James has the nicer one, and Will goes to visit him and suggests that they use the ruby that he now swallowed to buy their freedom. James goes to bang the jailer's daughter and Will waits with the other crazies. And then it does work. They buy their freedom and he follows them around. Will suggests that they work together as a team because James knows the rich, but he isn't one. They go shopping to turn James into a true gentleman and Will to look like his servant, and then they find a nice place and they go searching for Lord Rochester, played by Cumming. He gets invited to a card game that night and is losing badly there too, but he does find out the real intel of who's winning that night. But the real treasure is this.
You are not a gentleman.
I'm sorry?
No gentleman would stare at a lady like that in public.
I do beg your pardon. Captain James Macleane, at your service.
Lady Rebecca Gibson, played by the lovely Liv Tyler. She's the Chief Justice's niece, and as they're riding through the park that night, they're robbed. And James even apologizes to her as he's robbing her and leaves her favorite necklace behind. There's much arguing in the Senate, and we see the Prime Minister talking to General Chance, and he's now tasked with capturing the highwaymen. And Will tries to teach James to shoot. It's not so successful. James goes to a large party and he sees Lady Estelle. He's told she owns half of England, but he's distracted by the lovely Rebecca. But her uncle says that he's not worthy, and basically cockblocks him and leaves. Will then tells him to go woo Estelle, and it doesn't take too much convincing, but it has a price. Then, even though it's a few days later, Estelle's getting married and they stake out her wedding and then they rob it. And the fireworks are going off and they stylistically escape, even though there was a lot of witnesses there. A lot of the jewelry was cheap glass and knockoffs. Will says they need to keep a tighter budget. And Chance is working both angles with the Prime Minister and the Chief Justice kissing his ass. And then we get a techno montage of mostly successful robberies. And Chance still seems upset. Will and James visit a brothel to celebrate, but James has some performance issues.
It's Rebecca.
Chance is in the brothel and he's beating a girl, so Will sees this and he interjects, and Chance demands satisfaction, so pistols tomorrow, they'll have a duel. And Chance cheats in that duel. I mean, he's got a Bible under there, and Will does a perfectly placed shot and hits the Bible. So Chance still takes his shot and he shoots Will in the arm, and it hurts, but Will's still defiant. Will gets some attention from the ladies and Rebecca, so James gets a little jealous. They're gonna do one last job, which means it's gonna go bad. Now that's a death. Even worse though, Chance has all his men surrounding the area and they have to jump into the carriage and it gets shot to shit. They do manage an escape though. Chance finds Will's knife, so he knows who's been doing the robberies, and James was shot. So Will carries him back home, and we learn that Will had another life before this, and a love, Mary, but when she died, well, he went into a life of robbery. So now he's gonna buy them some tickets so the two of them can go to America. Chance goes to tell Gibson that he has to leave the country as the Prime Minister has empowered him, and then he goes to show what a creep he can be with Rebecca.
I like your tears. They excite me.
He then gets his man Eddie to keep an eye on them, and James wakes to Rebecca sitting in his home. She wants them to rob her and her uncle as they're leaving because he'll have most of his fortune with him. And then she retells the story to Will, and Eddie overhears this, so Chance adjusts his plans that night, and so when they go to rob them, Rebecca's not even there. Will catches on, but James wants to know where Rebecca is, so he keeps asking, and he takes longer. Will wants to leave right away, but he sees that James spent all his money, and now he's pissed and he ain't gonna help him find Rebecca. Will goes to try and find her at her home, but Chance is there, and he gets captured. James is put on trial before the council, and they even blame him for Gibson's murder, which we know was Chance.
You incompetent imbecile! What happened to my escort? I might have been killed!
You were.
Chance brings Rebecca to the prison to see James, and she hugs him and says that she didn't betray him, and then she drops her necklace there so that he can take it. The guard gives him a look, but it didn't really do anything. He also gets carted out in front of the crowds, and we see a man strung up, and the crowd actually gives James a couple beers.
Proceed!
Then he's marched to the rope where he refuses a head cover, and a noose is put around his neck, and he's strung up. But Will shows up with a horse and all this dramatic shit, and he starts shooting people. Even Rochester helps Rebecca escape. Chance and his men are coming, but Will takes the time to give Rochester back one of the things he stole from him at that wedding, and then the three of them head into the sewers. But Will says he has some unfinished business, and Chance comes by his body, and Will's clearly been shot, and he even thumbs his eye a little bit.
Does that hurt?
Only when I laugh.
Soldiers surround Will, but then James and Rebecca come back and help him out, and then they escape off to America. The end. It definitely underperformed in the US, but it has a legit cast. And although it was a small role, I love seeing Tommy Flanagan in this. I mean, he's been in Gladiator. Recently, he did a great job in Wu Assassins and Westworld. Robert Carlyle from far too much to cover, but, Trainspotting, my favorites being Ravenous and Stargate Universe. Jonny Lee Miller, who just finished up a long run on Elementary as Sherlock Holmes, also in Trainspotting, and I loved him in Hackers. And Liv Tyler, my heart, from Empire Records, Lord of the Rings, and I got a cover in 2018's The Wildling.
I hope they hung you in Tyburn for your bad French.
Merci, monsieur. I hope it rains every day of your fucking visits.
In the end, this is a low-budget, fun adventure flick with some decent actors doing a great job. They really stretched the budget to make it look like they've got the whole world there, and the characters, they're entertaining to watch. So if you haven't checked it out, I recommend you do. It didn't hold up as well as I remembered it, but I still enjoyed it. Well, as always, thanks for watching.